CanPL.ca Newsroom for this week. Marty Thompson with Charlie O'Connor Clarke, Benedict Rhodes, and Brady Reid. Christian is off this week, enjoying a nice vacation with his family, which brings us to our opening question. If you had to vacation with any one person from the CanPL universe, who would it be and where would you go? Charlie, you sort of perked up when I asked this question before we hit record, so you're going first.
Did I? All right. Only because I've actually got an answer. Because I think that it would be really cool to go to Spain with Mista. Just have him kind of take me around, show me Madrid, stuff like that. Because he knows the sites, he knows where to go. It's always good to go to a country with a tour guide, somebody who knows what they're doing. And I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Just pure Mista vibes.
Exactly.
Mista vibes.
It's all vibes.
Benedict.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing. So I'm going to switch my answer up. I'm going to say, I'm going to say a cross-country trip with Anthony Novak sounds pretty good too.
Prepare for the skinny dipping. Skinny dipping. Brady.
Yeah. First of all, beautiful haircut, Charlie. That has to be acknowledged before we move on. I'm going to go with I've always wanted to go to the UK, go to a Premier League game, do the full match day experience, do a pub. So I feel like if I bring Rob Gale with me, it's just going to be a better time, isn't it? It has to be.
But then you have to go see Arsenal play probably, which would kind of suck.
Oof. We cut that out? No, I'm joking.
we could come back to that. I mean, with Rob Gale, it would be a long trip. It would be a long trip. He knows a lot of people. Okay, let's get to, for my money, the big match of the weekend. Atletico Ottawa beating Halifax 2-1 at home at TD Place. 12,000 fans plus in attendance there. Benedict, this was your game to cover for the website. I know Charlie and other people have mentioned on this podcast, we've had players mention that this game could be a big boost, something to galvanize around for the rest of the season. Did Ottawa get that with that late Brian Wright winner?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the second biggest crowd in Canadian Premier League history. Over 12,000 fans were there. I think only beaten by the first ever game. And you can tell that they were feeding off that through the whole game. Malcolm Shaw, as we'll get to, talked after the game about how much they needed that support. And I think that's definitely be a turning point and a much needed 3 points as well, and a very good performance, but also on such a historic day at TD Place as well, of course. So sort of everything you could ask for if you're an Atletico Ottawa player or a fan.
Yeah, and then we thought Mista was going to be suspended for this game, and he wasn't, so he was able to provide some Mista vibes adequately after the game. Charlie, this has been a long time coming, right? This team has been in a very difficult situation, and Mista has, frankly, for a very long time, and there was just something just about how this all came together, right?
Yeah, I don't think you could really script this better. I mean, how many times have we seen this very same Ottawa team kind of go to pieces at the end of games this year, right? They've given up a lot of leads late. They've just kind of tired. They've kind of crumpled in the late stages. But in this game, they're at home, again, with that big crowd behind them. And they just keep pushing forward against a good Halifax team. And they're just getting more and more from the game as it goes on. And just that winner finally came. And it's just, you feel just this wave of emotion around that team, around the supporters in the stands, that just finally something has gone right for them, right? Because it's been a difficult start to the season. They've had, so many suspensions, injuries, whatever. Just games haven't gone the right way for them. Lots of silly mistakes and stuff that have kind of made them drop points. And just at last, I mean, you could see it in everybody's faces after the game. Mista especially, just the biggest grin I've ever seen on a guy's face in my life.
MistaVibes is ready to go to Spain.
Exactly. Well, he doesn't need to go to Spain. He's staying here for a long time, staying in Ottawa. It was just such a good day for that club, though, and one that's really been 18 months in the making.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. We're going to talk about Akeem Garcia briefly here too, Brady, but Benedict, Alberto Soto stuck out to you after the game. I know he's a player that we've all been kind of waiting patiently to sort of burst from the seams, and it looks like he really did that on Ottawa. Can you talk a little bit about his performance for those who didn't see the match?
Yeah, I think he's worth the wait. I think, as Misa said, he's never really played in sort of a deeper midfield kind of role. Usually he's more of a sort of attack-minded player, but I think he thrived in that role. He's always calling for the ball. He was sort of dropping into spaces to get the ball. He always wanted it, and his passing was good. He led the team in tackles and clearances, I believe, as well. So his defending was good as well. And I think that M&M&M trio might not be playing very many games more together if Soto wants to keep playing like that.
I think that's okay. What do you guys think about the M&M&M boys maybe not happening as frequently moving forward? I just feel like they're all too similar.
Yeah,
so
I
really
thought the same thing.
Right?
I thought the same thing when we saw like Chris Manella trying to play as maybe more of a number 10. I was like, that's not really his position naturally, right? So, 3 very good players to rotate through maybe 2 positions or something like that is not a bad problem to have.
All right, we'll go to our East Coast correspondent here for Halifax. Akeem Garcia gets off the board here, Brady, off the penalty. Your thoughts on maybe him specifically, and then what else you saw from the Wanderers that day?
Yeah, I think, we've talked about this so many times this season, just about, strikers who have been struggling getting that first goal and how important it's been for them down the stretch. I guess we'll see what happens with Akeem, but I mean, a penalty is a great opportunity to break that. I think kudos to them for giving him the opportunity to convert despite his struggles. I think, they're a team that realizes if they need to turn it around, if they're going to turn it around, Akeem's going to start scoring goals too, right? So there's that relationship there where, they're helping him out, but at the same time, they know that they're going to need him down the stretch here. And so obviously the result doesn't go their way. It's funny. It's almost the opposite of the reverse fixture in Halifax where Ottawa take a 1-0 lead and then Halifax come back and score twice. So this is going to be interesting. Obviously, both of them right now are pretty far are out of the playoff picture by some standard right now. But these games are going to be important for the two of them, and I think sneakily from being in the game of Wanderers grounds, like there has the potential to be a little bit of a rivalry here. I mean, they are the 2 closest geographical teams out east, so it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
It's funny you mentioned that because the Halifax Wanderers set to play AS Blainville in the Canadian Championship, a game I'm super pumped for. That's on Tuesday night, 6:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Atlantic. Even closer than Ottawa. Blainville is from Quebec. That's going to be a very exciting game. We're going to talk about the Canadian Championship quite a bit here later on in the show, but we have to talk about Forge FC and CONCACAF League. Somehow this wasn't our number 1 match in our rundown. 3 goals for Forge on the road, technically, against CD Fast. CD Fast got 1 in that one. Charlie, you're our correspondent for this game. Lights out performance.
Oh,
the lights went out at the end of the game.
Oh, no.
If you didn't see it, the lights went out. Was that at like 80th?
It was like the 85th minute, and the lights went out for like 20 minutes. And we were just kind of sitting there. Props to Adam Jenkins on the One Soccer broadcast, who just kind of sat there and filled time. He was like a late night sports radio host, just kind of taking calls and taking tweets from people, reading emails from CONCACAF verbatim on air. It was awesome. He did a great job. He did a really great job.
We're going to go to Barry and Miramichi. What do you have to say, Barry? Do one of those.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, this game, Tim Hortons Field looked a lot different in this game, certainly, because it was apparently a home game for Forge. But yeah, all kidding aside, this is just a fantastic performance from Forge against one of the best teams in El Salvador, who I think won the Clausura Championship in El Salvador last year. They're undefeated so far in the league. Actually, that might have changed. I haven't checked what happened in their game on Saturday. But they're a very good team with some international pedigree, a few guys with El Salvador caps. And Forge was just the better team the whole way through, right? I think we need to talk about Tristan Borges, who is back, it looks like. That was the best game he's played this year, probably by far, for Forge. Yeah. And I mean, they were missing Kyle Becker in this game. They didn't have Bobby Smirniotis on the sideline. All the other guys that have been missing for a significant period of time. And there was just no problem. Forge is really settling into this competition, and every time we seem to see them play down in the CONCACAF League, they're better. They know what they're doing. They know what they're here for. And this was just a really professional kind of knockout game performance.
We should talk about Tristan, like you said. He's a difference maker, right? And that's another thing we've talked quite a bit about Brady. But Charlie, it's just great to see someone like that have that ability in CONCACAF, right? And to be able to do that. And we're going to talk a lot about what it's like to play down there. But can you talk a little bit about Tristan's performance in this game and how ultimately it really was the difference?
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I think maybe there is something to the effect that because it's a different competition, the stakes are a little higher, the margins are a little slimmer. That can maybe bring something out of a player, when you're kind of coming into a season with a team maybe you ease in a little bit, you take things a little bit more slowly because the team is playing well around you, and you know that you can kind of work up to speed, and eventually, hopefully by the end of the season, when it comes to the playoffs and whatnot, you'll be in top form. But when you get into a knockout round game like this in a competition that, to be honest, I think is probably Forge's priority, when you get into a game like this, he's able to find that extra gear, which we maybe haven't seen yet this season, because he was, just making a lot of those runs that sometimes he might have backed off on a little bit earlier when maybe the confidence wasn't quite there as much. He's making those runs in behind. He's finding those pass outlets. And just this was the Tristan Borges we grew to know in 2019, right? The guy who can take over a game and can, find those scoring opportunities. And it really was a lot of fun to see.
Just another quick thought on Forge. If you haven't listened to the Kyle Becker interview with Christian, find it in your podcast feed, find it on YouTube, Beyond the Pitch with Kyle Becker. Near the end of it, they start talking a little bit about CONCACAF League, and a quote from Kyle that really stuck out to me was, there's space out there when you're down in Central America on the pitch. You just need to be confident enough to be able to find it. And I think this was a game, Brady, that Forge was ultimately confident enough to finally have that sort of that marauding presence, that forward-thinking mentality that, frankly, as we've seen over 2 years, this team has just grown and grown and grown to that point.
Yeah. Oh, there was a lot of space in this game actually for a first leg of a 2-leg tie in knockout football. Like, it was open. It was fun to watch. It was 3-1, but there was way more chances than that at both ends, honestly. And I think just, for a neutral, that's a delight. But for Forge, Charlie kind of mentioned this, not to at all suggest they're not motivated by CPL play right now, be it Tristan or the whole team, but they've had 2 cracks at this, and they've made a pretty decent run, especially last year. So I think obviously they've done in the league. We all know that. This is something that they kind of want to add to their CV, if you will. And for Tristan, he's a guy who's obviously had a ton of success in 2019 specifically. So if this is that extra bit of motivation that they needed to maybe carry over into the league, then by all means, it's a good problem to have for them.
And quickly, Benedict, did you send the email to One Soccer about making sure that we have a mic in the bench of Forge for every single CONCACAF League game? Did you send that email?
We need one next to David Edgar specifically in every game.
Yeah, I mean, awesome. It was. Oh, yeah, Benedict, I know you're really enjoying some of the play-by-play from the bench there with that mic that was just seemed to be maybe just on the outside of the bench pointing in. But I mean, it was just interesting to listen into the things that they would react to. Like, Charlie, I know you wrote quite a bit about the physicality in this game on the website, and it's a CONCACAF League game. You're going to get a lot of that, but how the bench reacted to each individual moment, I found fascinating. Benedict.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said in our group chat, it's almost like they had lav mics on their shirt. It was right down their face. It was fascinating, right? I think that's something we maybe haven't had as much since fans have started coming back to stadiums. When stadiums were empty, we could hear every single word that the players were saying. So it's kind of cool to get that even more insight, I guess, into what they're talking about, and maybe tactically as well.
I will be sure Forge will be pointing the mic far away from their bench for leg 2. I don't think they want CD Fast listening in too much. Charlie, what can we expect from leg 2 coming up this week? What do you really anticipate out of this? And maybe from Forge's perspective as well, can we expect them to maybe hunker down, try to get a result, or try to play for it?
Yeah, so this second game is really just about getting the job done. I think maybe Forge comes out in this game and tries to put another goal on the board and put things to bed. But at the end of the day, it's really about just managing the tie and making sure that, not only you come out of it with the win, but you come out of it intact, right? You don't want any injuries. You certainly don't want to get maybe sucked into any shenanigans, which we can kind of see towards the end of these sorts of CONCACAF League knockout games. We don't want any red cards or anything like that coming out at the end of this game, which would obviously hamstring Forge heading into the round of 16, I think is the next one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it'll really be about just, showing you've been there before, being a little bit professional in just the way that you see this out. You want to find a goal or two. But you mainly more than anything else, you just want to stay pretty solid, stay professional, stay calm throughout the whole thing. And I think just see out this tie because they've done most of the offensive work that they needed to do in that first leg.
Tuesday night, 10:15 Eastern time, Forge versus CD Fast, leg 2. That'll be again on One Soccer. All these games on One Soccer. Get those lab mics back. Get them. We need it. Okay, switching to the Canadian Championship. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming games coming up as well, but we did have one tie this weekend that opened the tournament. Cavalry beating FC Edmonton 2-0. That happened last night as we're recording on Sunday. Charlie, you were our correspondent for this one. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. at midweek said his team was like a Swiss Army knife. That was quite apt. But which tool was used on Sunday?
Yeah, well, he said they were Swiss on Wednesday or whatever it was, but on Sunday he said they were Italian. Because he kind of
Italian knife?
Not even. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, I was asking Tommy about that first half against Edmonton. And he said that they played a little bit like those Italian teams of old, where they just were very patient with the ball and they tried to just hold on to possession, suck defenders in, and then maybe look to play in behind. And I thought they were kind of doing that a little bit, and then they would get it out to the wings and they would look to play in those crosses, which didn't go super well for the first maybe 25 minutes, but eventually Jose Escalante pings one in that is just perfect right on the head of Jose Hernandez. He wins that aerial duel really well. It puts it off the crossbar, and then Joe Mason is just in perfect position. But this is Cavalry. I mean, I think Alan Koch said it best after the game that they're a step ahead of Edmonton right now in terms of their chemistry and their flexibility and their depth, because Edmonton is still building. There are a lot of new players on the pitch in that game, and I think we're going to talk about that in a second. But just to stay on Cavalry for a second, they just seem to have a little bit more of an understanding of how to maybe see out a knockout game like this and just stay a little bit comfortable in a game like that, where I think maybe there were chances at both ends. Edmonton had some great ones, but Cavalry defended very well. I think Edmonton, like 2/3 of their shots came from outside the box, because this is just Cavalry was pretty much in control for a lot of this.
Brady, we've seen this, back three, whatever you want to call it. Cavalry playing with 3 center backs. At midweek, they played with Dan Klomp, David Norman Jr., and Karifa Yao. And then for this game, they brought in Mason Trafford. This group, whatever 3 center backs they pick, it's quite an intimidating bunch. Like, what makes this group work so well for you that they're able to get, back-to-back clean sheets in difficult positions, frankly?
Yeah, I think it's balanced. To be honest, I think a lot of the personnel, like you said, it's 4 guys that are kind of interchanging there, but Trafford and Klomp kind of have that skill set where they can provide a little bit of stability, and obviously David Norman, naturally a holding midfielder who loves to tackle, so he can kind of be all over the place sometimes and sort of winning those balls. And then of course we'll get into Karifa Yao and the way he was able to shut down Bustos in a little bit more detail, but he was almost this kind of, this false left back and prevented Bustos from creating too much. And the great thing about all 3 of them is they're all very physical, but they can all play as well. Like they can all pick a pass, be it, like you said, yesterday it was more about just like, dictating play, maintaining possession. But then we've seen, when they want to try to stretch teams like Pacific, they can play that long ball. Dan Klom certainly has that in his locker. I think, Karifa Yao has definitely shown strides in that department when he's been leaned on a little bit more. So I think at the end of the day, it's about, yes, they're physical and they're intimidating, but like that they can truly play as well, and they can kind of beat you in several ways, which, like we said, they get a clean sheet against Edmonton, they get a clean sheet against Pacific, 2 very different sides, and they come up with the same result.
We'll get to Edmonton again briefly in the Nil Nil Report, which is at the end of our show. For a reason. Benedict, you covered FC Edmonton on the game at midweek, and this is a team that's changing quite rapidly. They actually have been chopping and changing, adding some players. Vela left, Thomas Gardner went back to university, and they've added a few more players. Like it's a team that's actually kind of for some measure evolving as we're seeing this, right?
Yeah, I think some of the new additions look to be really good too. Like Adam Najem looked really good, but I think I said that he looks a little bit hestant sometimes. Maybe it's just a chemistry thing. But so I think sometimes like he looks like he's an eye for a pass or an eye for a shot, but then maybe he just isn't willing to take that pass or shot. So these new arrivals look really good. It's just a matter, I think, of building that chemistry with one another. And Alan Koch did say as much midweek. It's just, sorry, not Alan Koch, Lars Hirschfeld in the post-game press conference said that like they just need to sort of play together a bit more. And when they do, this team has potential to be a really good team.
Okay, on to the Nil Nil Report. We should have like a big, nice news stinger. That'd be nice. 2 nil-nillers at midweek. We'll talk about them briefly here. Pacific versus Cavalry FC on Wednesday. Brady, we'll turn to you on this one. Though Charlie did say this game was going to be great.
Yeah.
It wasn't as great as expected. Okay, Charlie.
I'm not the only one that thought that, though.
I know. We all thought it. But I mean, ultimately, a great game from both defenses, both defensive units. As you already mentioned, Karifa Yao really shutting down Marco Bustos. He didn't have much to do and to say in this game. And overall, it was just a solid matchup, I suppose, of two of the best teams in the league. Brady.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Charlie's fault that this game fell flat.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Okay, that's fine.
No, I mean, this stuff happens. Like we've actually been very fortunate in this league where, when you plug the big game all week and then it falls flat. It happens in the Premier League, it happens in the major leagues, but we haven't seen a lot of that. But I don't think it wasn't the least entertaining game I've ever seen, just because, like we said, the defensive performances were just so strong. For Pacific, obviously Callum Irving, I believe he was Gatorade Man of the Match. He had quite a performance, while Carducci kind of had a quiet afternoon. We kind of pondered giving him a shout for Player of the Week, but then we were like, oh, he actually didn't touch the ball very often, so we went with David Norman. But I think that was just credit to that back three in general. It could have been any of those guys, and I think, like we said, to be able to give a guy a break and kind of not look like there's any issues there. It's a very seamless transition for that back line. I think Cavalry would probably be the happier of the two teams. I think that's fair to say, but they're at the top of the table, so that's why they're able to field a pretty strong team against Edmonton, because they like their spot in the table. They don't have to rotate too much, and they can prioritize the Canadian Championship, right? So I think if I was Tommy Wheeldon, I'd be pretty happy with that 0-0, whether it was the most entertaining game or not.
And yeah, Pacific really struggled to create too many chances. And Charlie, this is something Tommy Wheeldon Jr. touched on after the game, along with the Swiss, Italian, French army knife or whatever. They want Spruce Meadows to be a really difficult place to play at. And we talked a little bit about Starlight Stadium being that in the early goings of the season, but just looking at the crowds that continue to show up there week after week, and it's been a fantastic atmosphere. Christian was there actually during this game, they really wanted to make it a difficult environment, and it kind of seems to be that.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I think it was obviously in 2019 as well, and it's kind of nice to see that coming back. But yeah, you've got that kind of red wall down at the one end that just always seems packed, and it's just an incredible sight. It's nice and noisy at Spruce Meadows. I know that they've put in a new pitch there with the grass, and it's probably one of the better surfaces in the CPL to play on. But it's different from what a lot of the other clubs are used to. So that's another thing that Cavalry have going for them, and it is definitely becoming a fortress. It helps that Cavalry themselves are a very tough team to play against, no matter where they are. They were in Winnipeg, they were in PEI, and they have been on the road in the last few weeks. They're a very hard team to break down. They're not going to give you a lot of space with the ball, and they really are kind of buying into that idea of we're not going to let teams attack us. We're not going to let teams score on us at Spruce Meadows. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what the home records will be at the end of this season if Cavalry is not near the top, if not the top. Okay, to close out the 0-0 report, FC Edmonton versus Valour on Thursday. Benedict, you were our eyes and ears for this one. Looks like Valor's just ready to go home to Winnipeg. They're ready to go. It's been a tough slog on the road here, and obviously being in the hotel in Winnipeg itself, it just looks like they're ready for a rest.
Yeah, they said as much after the game as well. Like Massovo didn't really finish the question when I said, "Are you ready to go back home to Winnipeg?" He was instantly yes. Rob Gale as well said as well. Like it's been pretty much 8-9 weeks away from their families for the most part, with the bubble and then the 2-week road trip as well coming out of this. So they're excited to get back, or they are back now. They play tonight against Pacific at home. They needed, I think, something positive to spark them, and I think maybe a trip back to IG Field will do the same thing it did for Ottawa. Maybe give them a chance to sort of pick up a big win and sort of break. I think it's 5 games in a row now without a win, and only 1 draw in that span as well.
Yeah, and we could talk a bit about this game at Clarke Field. Just lethargic it seemed. It seemed like a kind of a difficult slog for both teams. What's your thoughts on FC Edmonton coming out of this one? I know we talked a little bit about them from Cavalry, but it looks like Easton Ongaro came close. Then he was carded for simulation. It just looked like it was just a difficult game overall.
Yeah, it's definitely a goalkeeper's game. I think both of them came up pretty big. Matt Silva as well, especially made some huge saves, especially at the end to deny Matthew Durans right at the end there, and there's a couple moments of magic from the goalkeepers, but for the most part, shots were from outside the box, and both teams were kind of, you said maybe a little tired, maybe needed a game that sort of refresh, I guess, a little maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Valour back in action Monday night as we're recording this, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's tonight on One Soccer. All right, that pretty much wraps up what we've got to talk about this week. We'll do play a little predictor game, but we should mention that the Canadian Championship, this is big.
Yeah.
We've got Halifax Wanderers versus Blake, but we talked about that. But the big game, I think, is York United versus Masters Football of League One Ontario on a Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. That is a perfect game to happen between two GTA rivals, soon-to-be rivals.
It's going to be fun.
It's
going to be really cool.
It's going to be a blast. I mean, what we've seen previously, and I'm not sure who will want to jump on this, maybe even Brady, like we've seen Vaughan, Missouri, when they played the Wanderers in 2019 at a League One, and they really gave it to them. Of course, there were some really good players on the pitch that day, including Alistair Johnson, who played for Vaughan. Obviously, now playing against Mexico and some of the best in the Confederation. But there are some really talented players, and Masters has an interesting history as well of having a lot of really tenured senior players that who knows could give York a go, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I just spoke to their coach recently, and they're super motivated for this. Obviously, winning the league in 2019 and then not having the opportunity to run it back last year and have to wait so long for the Canadian Championship. They're patient, like you said. They're a very veteran group, especially for League One Ontario. But they're not nervous about this game. Like they're really excited, and I think, like you said, it's going to be an interesting one. And Alistair Johnson is such a good example. Like 2 years ago, he's playing in this competition, and actually one of the players on Halifax, like I said, we were talking a little bit about the Canadian Championship, and he's like that's the guy from Vaughan, Missouri who plays for Canada. That was 2 years ago. He's gone from that league to now, he's an absolute lock for Herman. I'm like, yeah, that's him. So it's just, it's honestly, that's why this competition exists, right? You can climb the Canadian soccer pyramid so quick, and like you said, I'm really excited for Saturday. But the Blainville Halifax is interesting too, because I think Halifax have 4 or 5 ex-Blainville players, so it'll be something of a reunion out there too.
Glad you mentioned that. If you flip it back to Blainville 2019 when they played York 9, that was in the opening weeks of the CPL season. Kerry Ivanovic from Halifax saw the pitch that day. Mo Farsi saw the pitch as well. I'm trying to think. There were multiple players that saw. Maybe even Kareem So was in and around there. Maybe. There's tons of players to watch out for. And Masters is a great example, as you mentioned. They've got a couple former Jamaica internationals in their team. And yeah, they've recruited quite well within League One. They've decided to go very much senior rather than junior, which is which should make for a good game. And then also we have Ottawa, Valour. Again, that's also on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then frankly, the big one, I think we got to talk about this. We may get to it next week, but Pacific versus Vancouver Whitecaps at Starlight Stadium. Let's go. We had Marco Bustos on Beyond the Pitch talk about how he was desperate to score a goal at BC Place. Clearly just to, get one back at the Whitecaps, but this is a perfect tie, Charlie. I know you seem pretty pumped for this one, but I'm just so excited for this game, man.
This is a game that we've wanted since the beginning of the CPL, right? Yeah. Like this is a fixture, a matchup that I think Pacific especially have wanted for, probably 3 years now. Just think about how many guys on the Pacific roster used to be Whitecaps in the academy or the first team or the second team, or even Pamadou Ka was, a very important player for the Whitecaps not even that long ago. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, very excited for that. Okay, before we go, we'll do a CanPL.ca predictor. Go to CanPL.ca/predictor to play, win points, win prizes. And we're going to play a little bit here to give you a bit of a head start on it. Valour versus Pacific. I'm going to go with Benedict. What's the score in this one on Monday night?
I'm going to go for the upset. I'll say 2-1 to Valour.
Interesting. I mean, that's possible. Okay, Ottawa versus York United at TD Place. Another game at home for Atleti. Charlie, MistaVibes or no MistaVibes? I guess he might be suspended for this one. I don't know.
Yeah, this is be Ajay Cabra vibes, I think. But yeah, I think they keep it rolling. I think this is 3-1 for Ottawa.
Let's go. I would love that. Okay, Brady, Pacific against Cavalry, the reverse of what the match we were just talking about last week at Starlight Stadium. What's the result out of this one?
Don't say 0-0.
Not 0-0. I'm not going to be that guy. I'll go 2-1 Pacific.
Okay. So are you saying that this is going to be a good game to watch?
That's a lot of pressure, but I will take that on. I'll say
Okay, there we go. Direct your complaints directly to Brady. Okay, and then finally on the Sunday, this is an interesting one. Forge versus the Halifax Wanderers at Tim Hortons Field. Benedict, give us your best result of this one.
I think Forge will take this one. I'll go for 2-0.
That's interesting. Yeah,
it'll be a tough one for Forge coming back from El Salvador.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like Halifax might be hungry. Something that maybe to keep an eye out for the Canadian Championship this week is how much teams rotate. I know Edmonton rotated quite a bit on Sunday. Just depends on the coach's preference, right? Maybe they don't want to make a run. Who knows? Maybe Stephen Hart rotates against Blainville, gets a result, and then beats the heck out of Forge at Tim Hortons Field. I doubt that. Okay, we'll be back. We'll be back again next week to recap the games. As always, be sure to check out Beyond the Pitch with Christian Jack. Now 4 episodes in your podcast feed. Lots of great conversations. If you haven't already delved into them, go ahead and check those out. The last one with Kyle Becker, again, can't recommend that enough. That was fantastic. He likes Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He mentioned that. He also likes nachos. So there's lots more past that. I just remember those 2 details.
A couple of great things. Just what's not to like.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll be back next week to recap the games. Again, Monday tonight, as we're recording this, Valour versus Pacific FC on One Soccer. Tuesday, we've got the Canadian Championship with Halifax and Blainville. And then right after that, we have CONCACAF League. Forge looking to advance again, moving on through the continental competition.